Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Omni Viewer, and I'm here to do what I'm presuming will be a pretty quick unscripted video about Star Trek Discovery. And before any of you ask, no, I am not going to spend this entire video comparing it to the Orville. The only thing I'm going to say as comparison is that Discovery did not disagree with me in the same way that the Orville did. Didn't really disagree with me at all the way that the Orville did, and that is it. I promise you, that is the only thing I'm going to say. I've said my piece on the Orville, I'm done, I'm moving on. Now we are talking about Star Trek Discovery. And I have only seen the first episode as of this point. Because, well, I'm sure you've heard, the only way to see the entire series is to subscribe to CBS All Access. Unless it winds up on Netflix, which maybe it is and maybe it isn't. I'm still not entirely clear on that because I keep seeing conflicting information. But who cares? I'm just going to talk about the first episode now. So, the first episode was not bad. Lots of people have been really worried because it seems like, based on the advertisements, this Star Trek was going to be a really dark, really war-based kind of thing. Like, in a way that didn't necessarily line up with the spirit of Star Trek, is what I think people were worried about. Because it's not like Star Trek has ever been any stranger to darkness and war and conflict and whatnot. I mean, what's everyone's favorite Star Trek movie? Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, right? That's all about the conflict and the darkness and everything. So you can't really say that just because a Star Trek thing is dark and violent and such that it's not somehow in line with Star Trek. Well, to be clear, not automatically. It's got to have a certain tone to it, and it's hard to define exactly what that tone can be at times. But basically, I think the thing that people look for in Star Trek, as far as a consistent tone throughout, would be optimism. That's what Star Trek was really founded on. It is an optimistic show. And I think a lot of people were hoping that, especially in this day and age where things are kind of rough, and that's all I'm going to say politically or sociologically or anything, in this day and age where things are kind of rough, we could use an optimistic kind of show. And the fact that it looked like Star Trek Discovery may not deliver that was kind of worrying to people. I don't know if people actually voiced that specific thing or not, but that's my assessment based on what I've seen. However, at the same time, Star Trek is always reflective of the time that it's made in. Even the original series, the Cold War allegories running throughout that show are astounding, as well as the racial and bigotry issues. Star Trek, the original series, very much reflected the time it was made in. Star Trek The Next Generation reflected the time it was made in, so on and so forth. And based on what I've seen, which is the first episode, Star Trek Discovery is doing the same thing. It is reflecting our current state. However, since our current state seems to be sorely lacking in optimism at the moment, it too isn't quite in that realm. Not that it's like a nihilist series, but when you've got an alien character, that's the Doug Jones character, by the way, great makeup. Doug Jones is amazing. When you've got an alien character who outright says his entire race was bred for the sole purpose of predicting disasters or predicting death, whichever one of those two, which naturally makes him a pessimist, you know, that does raise an eyebrow. But at the same time, you know, the allegory is clear in this first episode. I don't know how spoilery I will be by saying this, but basically, Klingon jihad. That's the idea here. The Klingons are deliberately going to start a war, and the crew of the starship, it's not the Discovery in the first episode. At least I don't think it is. They never call the ship by its name, I don't think. If they did, it didn't really stick. And the advertisements that would play later have a character saying, "Welcome to the Discovery." So, and the design doesn't look anything like the ship that has been in all the promotional material. So, first episode, they're not on the Discovery. I'm very certain of that. But that's beside the point. It'll be the same crew either way for the most part, and they're not quite a harmonious crew. And again, that's nothing necessarily new to Star Trek, but they are more obviously disharmonized, if you will. Because you've got the pessimistic alien, you've got the first officer, who is actually the lead in this one. It still feels kind of like an ensemble piece, but she is primarily the focus. And she's got a past. We don't know the full extent of it yet, but it somehow involves the Klingons, and she's half Vulcan, but far more skewing towards human than Spock ever was. And then you have the captain, who certainly is a figurehead, but isn't really at this point coming across like someone who is very active. Like, and I don't mean that in a negative. Let me explain here. Whereas Kirk would take action, this captain, I'm sorry I don't remember the names, I've only seen it the one time. This captain in Discovery follows her orders from the higher-ups in Starfleet. So she's very much more by the book. And that's what I mean when I say she doesn't take action. Kirk would have taken the book, chewed it up, spat it out, stomped on it, then ate it again and flushed it out the toilet. But she won't. It's more, I guess Discovery is like if Kirk were the first officer instead of Spock. So, because she is the more impulsive, we need to take action kind of character. Maybe impulsive isn't the right word, but she is very much more of action, the first officer. And, yeah, there's clearly not the same level of unity as there has been with other crews, which again I think is meant to be reflective of the times this show was made in. Because, I mean, I swear I'm not trying to be political here, but look around you. So, hopefully this is all going somewhere that is in the spirit of Star Trek. Because I don't want to think certainly that this show, which is clearly trying to reflect modern times, will show a crew that is divided and keep them divided. I mean, obviously you still have to have conflict between them occasionally, because otherwise you have no story. But at the same time, I don't want to think that this will be such a disharmonized crew that if you keep watching you wonder how the ship is still together. Like physically, because it should have flown apart by now from everyone not getting along. So, but I don't know based on just this first episode. And the Klingons, they're, like I said, I think the intention is Klingon jihad. I don't know for certain yet. That's very much the impression I'm getting. And I will say the scenes with the Klingons kind of dragged because they spoke so slowly. And I think the reason they spoke so slowly was so you had time to read the subtitles, because they're speaking in Klingon. But they speak like this. Like almost no exaggeration there. Interesting designs. They look really, really alien here. Like their forehead ridges that are the way you recognize Klingons are the most pronounced I've ever seen them. And There's one Klingon who's got a very distinct design. I won't give it away, but he's got a very distinct design. I have a feeling he's going to be a very important character going forward. But really, I can't make much of a snap judgment based on just this one episode. See, it's actually very rare for me to make any kind of snap judgment based on just one episode of a series, especially the first one. Sometimes it happens, but the episode either has to really blow me away with how amazing it is, or really make me want to vomit with how terrible it is. Most of the time, as is the case with pretty much every show, you can't make that sort of judgment based on just one episode. Because it starts off the way it starts off, and you need a little more time to get into the rhythm of it. This shows you can make that judgment right away, they are rare. And Discovery falls in line with that idea. I would need to see more than just the first episode in order to make that assessment of whether or not it really is good, and therefore whether or not it really is worth subscribing to CBS All Access. Funny thing that CBS doesn't actually want to give me that chance. Yeah, you know how it's going. Only the first episode premieres on TV, and if you want to see the rest, you have to subscribe to CBS All Access. I personally do not like that. That's not the fault of the show, but I know it's CBS's scheme, and I really am not completely okay with it. I understand why they're doing it, because they really want this CBS All Access thing to work. And so they took the one show of theirs that they know already has a gigantic fan base built into it, and they decided that should be the show they hide behind the curtain to entice people. Because at the very least, they're guaranteed to have a large audience drive in to see it. Well, theoretically. But, yeah, paying an entire subscription fee for one show, if I watched other stuff on CBS, maybe, but I don't know. I need to see more of Star Trek Discovery before I could determine whether or not that's worth it. And unfortunately, I'm not high profile enough in the internet reviewing community to be one of those people who gets early access to stuff. So, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. Of course, it's quite possible that this policy will change, because if CBS All Access doesn't work, then they'll probably make a huge push to get Star Trek Discovery on other platforms, and maybe even on TV, as it originally was going to be and probably should be. Because this show has to make a lot of money back in order to justify its existence, because it is a really big show. That's one other thing I should have mentioned. The special effects are something else. This is like movie quality stuff we're looking at here. Even by Star Trek standards, this is high-profile special effects work. Comparable only to the movies, really. Because you watch other Star Trek shows, yes, they have the shots of the ships every so often, but you really pay attention and you realize most of the time when there's action happening, you're on the bridge and just watching it shake around and everyone jostle like they've been hit by the photon torpedoes. This show, the ratio of set inside the ship shots to outside of the ship special effects shots, I don't know the exact ratio, of course, but it almost seems pretty even. So a lot of money went into this. And if this little plan that CBS has going doesn't work, that either means the show will die, whether or not it deserves to, or it means they'll go to any other lengths to make that money back. We'll see. This got a little bit off topic, but like I said, it's just the first episode. I can't really make a full judgment on it yet, and I wish I could, but I don't know if it's worth signing up in order to do so. I hear some people saying it is, I hear some people saying it isn't. I like to make up my own mind on these kind of things, and I don't know. but the first episode certainly has me intrigued. I want to keep going. I want to see where it goes, if it gets better or worse, and how quickly it gets there, to either one. But, yeah, so that's pretty much all I can say. So, we will see what happens. I want to see more, like I said, but I don't know if I will. At least not for a while. Well, I still have the other stuff to keep me occupied in the meantime. Well, anyway, did you guys see the premiere? Have you seen beyond the premiere? And if you have, don't post any spoilers, but please feel free to share your thoughts, as always. And that's pretty much it for now. Live long and prosper, everyone. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off.